All right, we are live. It's like, yep. So, hello. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Margot Pines, your co host, and this is Carlos Marroquin, your other co host on the show. You're watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. And today, Carlos, we have a lot to talk about.
Lollipop with you. Let's.
This is my lunch.
Oh no. Keep
Yeah,
ready.
I'm hungry.
Uh, Happy to be here today. Wherever you may be watching us from, I am here. I would say this will be like the Crenshaw district. I'm running around. Have a meeting to attend right after this, so I had to make my way over here. But it is good being here today and being here with you. It is Sunday here, really cloudy, nice day, beautiful day, mystic, cool. It's like a December, feels very December here in Los Angeles. Really nice. Hope you'll be able to get out and enjoy a little bit of the day today here in Southern California. But glad to be here.
Great, Carlos. It's great. Well, the weather here is also very wintry. It's this like gray overcast that we get here in Georgia during the winter time. I think it's a little bit nicer in California in comparison, but let's get down to business. So, not a lot happening right now in Congress. There seems to be a lot of gridlock over the Build Back Better plan. My understanding is that the Senate is looking to bring it to the floor, I think around December 13th or so, December 15th, 13th, yeah. And there seems to be a little bit of a holdup with the usual characters, being Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Sinema of Arizona. And it's not clear yet that either of them are backing the legislation, and also not even clear if Joe Manchin is going to even support bringing it to the floor. So he is certainly dominating the discussion, and obviously it's all around the climate change related stuff because his coal barrenness ties to the coal industry, and he's he is a climate denier, so he's only interested in making money. So that's really seems to be what's happening in Congress, aside from the fact that there was some verbal attacks, I guess, against Ilhan Omar, and the usual craziness from the Republican Party being Islamophobic, etc. So no censure against the Lauren Boebert, apparently. So I don't know what. I guess I know what Kevin McCarthy is thinking, which is that he just doesn't care. But it's a terrible, terrible environment. I feel for Ilhan Omar. Oh, and I keep playing with my hair. I'm going to stop doing that. Carlos, thoughts? Oh, you're muted, Carlos.
We know that most likely this is not going to be heard this month. I doubt it very much. There's still a lot of pushback by Manchin. He has shown no interest in advancing this, and we knew that this was going to happen. Uh, it's no secret as to these things. Look, it is right now. It's just waiting and see. And if they do approve anything, it's going to be more watered down. Suggestions coming from Manchin and Cinema. So it's everything is up in the air. The thing about it that we need to focus and we need to continue to understand is that as long as we have people like Manchin in the Democratic Party, they will never be able to push for a good, hard, and effective um, agenda. Uh, any social programs that they want to implement, they will always have the pushback of people like him. That's the reality right there. So,
Right.
what can we expect moving forward? Not much, really. We can expect much more of the same. So that's where we at right now with this bill, and they're gonna. My feeling is they're going to end up, passing something, but it's not going to look like near anything as when it first started.
Right. Yeah. And of course, I mean, it's not just cinema and mansion in the Senate, right? There were also a group of people in the House, and there was like five or so people who were strongly opposed to a lot of the more, progressive ideas in the legislation. Which, I mean, I don't know. We say they're progressive, but when they're supported by the majority of Americans, that seems to just be ideas that most Americans think that they should see happen at the federal level. And there's this minority opposition which somehow has managed to take the majority of the power away in from the Democratic Party to be able to pass this much needed legislation, which even then is not enough, but still we need it.
Right. And these are the same things that are, and we're going to get into this because our conversation today is going to take us into a hard look at the political parties as they are right now. And
Mm-hmm.
pretty much that's where our conversation will take us, is the fact that this is more of the same thing that we are seeing over the years, but it is more clear today than ever where these political parties stand.
Yep.
So let's take a look at, for example, let's take a look at the Republican Party,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the state of the Republican Party, which is a completely it's not only a mess right now, but it is very clear where they stand with the issues. Very clear. They have never ever made it more clear than today. We know that the Republican Party does not represent the people. They make that clear over and over and over. Their representation is with corporate America. Point. I mean, they don't hide it. They adamant about it. This is a political party of money. This is a political party of power, economic power. This is a political party that discriminates, and they hide behind the lines of prosperity and hide behind the lines of taking personal responsibility. They hide the lines behind pro-life when in fact they are totally the opposite of it. They are the party that claims that they are very welcoming, but when you take a really hard look at their numbers and who represents them and who are their leadership, it is very clear that this is a very troublesome party because uh, they they are not concerned about those that struggle. They are not point blank. You know, they can tell us and they can try to sell us whatever, but that's are the hard realities. They are the party that are they are very dismissive of science, and we see that with climate change, they they oppose any kind of regulation that will take away profits from corporations, even if it means that they will put the vast majority of the people at risk, whether it be pollution, whether it be with destroying other parts of the environment, whatever it may be, they don't care. It's all about profit for them and how they can make sure that the powers that be maintain their profitability. So that's the Republican Party. They are in a state of chaos. This is a party right now that is really being run by Donald Trump. Donald Trump owns the Republican Party right now.
Mm-hmm.
Every, I would say, the vast majority of Republicans are scared to death of Donald Trump for whatever the reason. He has done, he has pushed the Republican agenda forward, I would say 100 miles ahead. And this is why they embrace him, because he was able to do stuff that they wanted to do over the decades. He was able to do it under one term, but it comes with a cost, with a huge cost. Yes, they have control of the Supreme Court, as we know. We know how they got there. We know that the last time that he nominated the Supreme Court judge when Ginsburg died, you know, any other time they would have waited until the elections because it was so close to the elections, but they allowed it to continue. And McConnell and everybody else stood silent because this was an opportunity for them, but it comes with a price. We're seeing the results right now with decisions that the Supreme Court are making, including the this most recent with the abortion hearing that they are having right now. It may go their way, but that may bring consequences. And the consequences that it brings, it affects the working class. Not only that, but it puts the Republican Party, he unmasked, let me rephrase that, he unmasked the Republican Party as to where they are with things and how they care very little about anyone else. So we could go on and on and on, but the fact of the matter is McCarthy right now has very little power within his own party. We have a party right now that has welcomed and embraced white supremacists, far right extremists. We have some now that are in Congress, and many more may come as a result of this. It is very dangerous because we see women like Majority Green in Congress. We see her extremist views that she brings. And what is alarming and concerning is that those ideas are being welcomed by the Republican Party and allowed to continue. And very little is said back against them when they are, when they are really something that would have never been accepted before. It is now accepted as a norm. That's what the Republican Party is right now. That's who they are. We cannot expect nothing less from them. This is a party of war. This is a party of you know pretty much disregarding the poor, disregarding third world countries, disregarding what the vast majority of the people in America need and want to protect them, disregard the pandemic, disregard vaccines. That's the party of the Republican Party. I mean, there's probably more that I can think that we can continue to talk about the Republican Party. But what do your thoughts, Mark? But
Well, I want to start by asking you a question, Carlos. If you think that Donald Trump is planning to run again in 2024 for president.
right, that's what is being said. Everything is calculated, and we got to understand that what we are going to see, moving forward, and we need to remember this, and we need to stay super focused on this. A lot of stuff that you see is easy for us to react and be emotional about it. But everything that you see in politics is calculated. They sit down in war rooms and they calculate these things. They just don't make moves just to make moves. That stuff that you see or that you hear politicians say, all those words are calculated. Everything has been planned, is planned. Sometimes they may slip, they may say stuff that actually didn't plan to say, but then they have people that help them fix those things. And that's without going, I'm not talking about us, making these things up. These things exist. So they have pretty much a plan how they playing almost like a chess game. In politics, that's what it is they make this move, the other one makes this other move, so on and so. So Donald Trump right now, yes, he can easily capture his audience by announcing, but without that, he's going to do that right now, because he may actually hurt the Republican Party in next year's elections to retake Congress. So that's what is being calculated right now, and that's why they're trying to see, when he will make that announcement, if he does. But my take on this, reading for what I'm reading on the political world, is that right now he's not going to be making this kind of announcements because they may be this close of retaking Congress, and they cannot afford to mess it up.
Well, I'm curious to know what the Democratic Party's plan is to maintain their slim majority in Congress, because right now they're not. I don't think they're doing enough to be impressive to the American people. I mean, Joe Biden, I think, was trying to do a little bit of a tour promoting the legislation that passed recently, but the infrastructure bill. But so people need so much more right now. I just think that they're really missing an opportunity here, and I don't know. It speaks volumes that that they're fighting themselves, and the Republicans, all they have to do is obstruct. So the Republicans almost have to do nothing at this point, but let the Democrats fight amongst themselves and tear apart their own legislation. And the Republicans, they do have plans to use this against the Democrats in the midterms. Like I have seen some strategy from the Republican Party, and one of it is that they're going to push hard on the narrative that the Democrats are disorganized. They cannot run a government. They're dysfunctional. And this whole time, this whole period of the infrastructure legislation, the Build Back Better plan, the infighting, they're going to really drive that home and say, these people, they don't know what the heck they're doing. They can't even agree amongst themselves. Look, Republicans, we're a united front. We can pass legislation. We can do things. We'll get this done. We'll fight inflation. The narrative that they use there. So I don't really see a big opening right now for the Democrats, which is concerning, because we have so much at stake right now with climate change and with people being evicted from their homes, healthcare, all of these issues. They just don't go away. They're
Right.
still there.
Exactly. This is what we have to look at. And when I talk to people, this is what people, some of the responses that we get is discouragement. People wanted to see a new president come in. They voted for Biden. At least here in most of our states, that he did really well. But a lot of them are very discouraged because they didn't see uh, this bold agenda being implemented. I know he went in and he started reversing some of the things that Donald Trump had done.
Mhm.
But when we look, like, for example, to immigration, the crisis is still at the border. It hasn't gone away. Probably maybe getting a little bit worse. You don't hear it for different reasons because, again, there is no real plan in place. So we don't know where that's going to end. But I know that a lot of the immigrant advocates are very discouraged because
Yeah.
they don't see the kind of uh, change that they were hoped to see. We still have 11 million, you know, DACA recipients, right? That is still in limbo.
Yeah, and not only that, this just came out this week too. I almost forgot about it. Was that the Biden administration has agreed to uphold the Remain in Mexico provision in Title 42. So there's very little shift there from the Trump era to the Biden era in terms of how they're going to deal with immigrants. And I think that was this is another violation of the campaign promises. And of course, Biden promised to cancel at least $10,000 of student debt. Said, well, we're waiting to hear back from the Department of Education. Of course, they got this letter like in April or something like that. Like it's been months and months that they've been sitting on this. And the debt collective actually did like a FOIA, and they got the letter. It was completely like marked out, blacked out. So we don't even know what the context is, or what was said in the memo. We can only assume that they basically said yes, that you can cancel the debt, because it doesn't make sense why they couldn't. So it's the Democratic Party, you don't want to burn bridges here, but at the same time, we really have to ask ourselves, what the hell are they doing? Do they really want to win, or do they want to lose? Because right now there's so many things where you can say, okay, look, our hands are tied because we have, these senators, a few, House representatives who are getting in the way of the negotiations. But then there are these other issues that are outside of the Congress. And the administration is still willingly upholding these things. They're still willing to, to sell off reserves, to the oil industry and for offshore drilling, so that they can continue their fossil fuel production. They're still supporting the Trump administration's laws or provisions around immigration. Like, what are they thinking? Like, it just doesn't seem to make any sense. Like, they think that that if they do these things, that they're going to lose. But to me, it seems by them not doing these things, they're going to lose, because I don't know. I think they're playing to the wrong audience here. I don't know if it's a generational thing, because people in charge are, they're in their late 70s and 80s. It's kind of embarrassing, and they're a little bit out of touch with the majority of Americans who are under the age of 65.
A lot out of touch. A lot.
And it's just like you're governing, for a different era, and you're going to lose because you're stuck in a different era. So I don't know. I want to say, like, I know that as progressives, as people on the left who are trying to engage at the electoral level, that we really don't have a lot of options in this two-party system. We've had Alan Minsky come on from Progressive Democrats of America, and he himself has said in the past, like, look, we have a two-party system. We have to join one of these parties. We have no inroads with the Republicans, so we got to do with what we have with the Democrats. So you don't want to like overstep maybe, but at the same time, it's kind of like hard to just sit here and also say, like, well, you're sort of throwing away every possible option you had to win a few votes, I think, with a lot of people, especially given what Bernie Sanders did and what he proved when he ran twice and almost won, if it weren't for the Democratic Party uniting against him at the end after Super Tuesday. So, people want these things. People want healthcare. People want a roof over their head. People don't want to be homeless or unhoused. They want security. They want education. They don't want to be in debt for the rest of their lives with interest that is ballooning. And no matter how much you pay off, you're still always going to be paying to these banks, and these loan servicers. Like, Democrats, they could just do a little bit, and they can't seem to do it. So I'm very worried. I'm very worried, Carlos, because I think that they're giving it away, and I don't know if and I don't think it's hard for me to believe that it's intentional. But they're not
right. I don't think
because it's just such buffoonery.
Right. I don't think it's intentional. I think that they do understand, and of course they cannot go public with this, but they understand that they really don't have the power that they claim to have. The Democratic Party is being controlled by centrists, and that is a huge problem. We often hear, and we hear the most from Manchin and Sinema, but there are others with the Democratic Party, and because they have a
Hmm.
huge majority, they pretty much to the center right.
Right.
That's what the Democratic Party is center right. They're not
Yeah.
center left.
Yeah.
Be-
And
right.
just to add in really quick on that is when it came down to having the $15 minimum wage in the reconciliation bill, or no, sorry, in the last stimulus bill, the people who undermined it were from the state of Delaware. It wasn't Manchin, it wasn't Cinema, it was these two senators from Delaware who fought against the majority of people who need desperately a $15 minimum wage. They were the ones who opposed it
Right.
from the president's home state. They were the ones who blocked it. How can you tell me that Joe Biden couldn't turn to them and say, like, look, guys, I know you, I've known you my whole life. What the F are you doing to my legislation, right? Like, well, not not his whole life, but like my whole Senate career. We're from the same state. I helped you guys
Right.
get in there, right? Like you took my seats. I helped you. But and he couldn't sit with them and say like, you owe me, you owe me. Don't you take down this $15 minimum wage? Like, I don't know, Carlos, but please continue. I just
Those are the things that is important for us to pay attention to and to understand. Because see, that way we are not going to be discouraged. We need to be clear-minded, sober-minded, cold-blooded when it comes to politics. We need to understand that not everything that is said is a fact or is real. Just like someone said before, they have a public, they have a public, uh, they have
in a private position.
a position rather, a public position, and then they have a private position. We need to understand that that is real. What the public hears is pretty much what they want you to hear. But there is a whole world in politics that people have no idea that exists, that goes on. There are battles within the halls of Congress that are very real. It doesn't matter how well intentioned you are when you go in, you're not going to be able to change things just because you want change. And that's the other part that we need to understand so that we don't get discouraged. I can run for office. A lot of people actually tell me, "Oh, you should run for office," and you know what I mean. I'm pretty much, we can run a campaign talking the talking points that people want to hear, that are popular, and people will say, "Oh my God, this is you know, this is the
Great.
guy, man, right?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he's going to change everything. But the reality is that once you get to Congress, you got to deal with the entire powers that control Congress. You could have the best ideas in there. You're not just going to go in there and start changing things. You're going to have real opposition.
Absolutely. I mean,
Real
yeah.
minds behind there that don't want change.
Yeah, I think people don't really understand that, especially when AOC first came into Congress and they expected, she was going to revolutionize the floor and become the House leader or something. And of course, that's not what happened. She's a freshman. They give her 30 seconds speaking time. That's all
Right.
she has on the floor, 30 seconds to say her piece. And then bye bye, go sit down, freshman. They have, unfortunately, there's a huge hierarchy in Congress and a pecking order. And you have to fall in line to a certain degree if you want to survive being there. I think if you want to survive being in that party,
Yeah, and that's
so that is the horrible thing of it, I think, and it's takes a lot of I don't it takes a lot of integrity and really being true to the reason why you're there to survive that, I think, because it's such an onslaught of opposition and a lot of people just
right.
don't understand it.
And even we have to really reemphasize this. Even if you are well intentioned, you could go in there, with saying the right things and everything that people want to hear out there. The real battle is in the inside. And if you don't learn to play the game in the inside to win, meaning that you have to start creating relationships in the inside so that any of the ideas that you have may have a chance.
Yeah,
Without having relationships in the inside, you could present every single, you know, bill that you want to. You can introduce bills left and right. They're not gonna go nowhere.
yeah, and let's use Bernie Sanders as a prime example of this. Bernie came into Congress in the '90s after being mayor in the '80s, mayor of Burlington, and he was relatively unknown until this opening happened for him to step in and push his ideas, which were popular ideas. And I don't think he even realized how popular his ideas were. But he put in a lot of years. He did, and he did put opposition. I mean, he was one of the few people who was there after the financial crisis, who was really pushing against these bailouts for the banks and fighting for people against these foreclosures and stuff like that. I mean, that's really, I think Bernie really shined during that period, and that's really the reason why activists tried to get him, convince him to run run for president. And he was worried. He was worried because he didn't want to lose the little bit of power that he had in all of that. Like, he worked all these couple of decades to get to the Senate, to have to be in that position of power, just to have that little bit of power, to have a little bit of influence on the legislation. And he was himself was worried that he might undermine it, and it might actually backfire for progressives if he ran for office. I mean, obviously it was the exact opposite, so it was fantastic that it worked out that way, but there was a risk, and he was worried about that because he didn't want it to backfire. And I think we have to realize that this is a long game in Congress, and that's why if we really are serious about having legislation that helps people, we have to elect more members of the squad, more Bernie Sanders type people, more Bernie Crats. That's the only way that you can win, is just by surviving the longest and building your numbers, I think. And that's something we have to understand. And I think normally, by any other standard or any other moment in time, I would probably say, like, this is okay. Just keep trying. We keep pushing. It's going to take time. But if it weren't for the fact that we had climate change sitting over the top of our heads, looming as sort of a deadline that is within a decade of happening, in terms of, like, the extreme weather events that we're seeing now becoming worse and worse within our lifetime, and within a decade, I think that because of that, it's just the pressure is so much more intense right now, and the feeling of, like, this is not enough. But it's not really because I expect AOC to change the world as one member of Congress, but it's just because, like, we don't have enough time. What can we do? How do we make this happen faster? Because before, like, yeah, okay, we could spend our whole lifetimes just getting more people, more young people into Congress, and it would be okay. Like, we're going to get there. We'll find a way. And, like, oh gosh, I forgot this one anarchist his name, who said that, but, like, he was, like, basically, like, we've been poor. We already know what it's like to be poor. We've been poor our whole lives. We can be poor a little bit longer. So we can outlive them. But now with climate change, it's a little bit, it's the stakes are so much higher. So I don't know. I think we just have to keep pushing, but at the same time, we have to know that we have to accelerate our ability to make these changes.
Well, the world cannot wait. The world cannot wait. We are pushed to the brink in many areas, and there is a shift that has taken place in Washington, politically speaking, where a lot of the conversations that were quickly dismissed before in the past are now pretty much at the front center of Congress and the conversations that they are having. It doesn't mean that they're going to do something about it, but we are through the Bernie Sanders movement, to the AOC and the Squad movement, and I call it a movement because they came from the grassroots. They are supported by the grassroots. We now have these conversations at the front center in Congress. We need to applaud ourselves for that. We really do. It doesn't mean that we arrived when Ocasio won her seat, Bauman, uh, Cory Bush, when they won their seats, it was just the very, 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 very beginning of what needs to happen. It's not the end result. This is
Right.
the starting point.
Right.
This is the bottom of the floor. We need to
Yeah.
understand that, people.
Yeah.
Don't think because we have a squad that all of a sudden they're going to change Congress. It's not going to happen. They have real, real hard, super hard opposition, not only within their own party, but the other party as well. So you're talking about being the super minority. So when I hear some of these talking heads, progressive talking heads, saying, well, Ocasio should do this, they should vote, you know what I mean? It's like, sure. If you don't live in the real world, yeah, that's the way it should go. But the real world, you got to be smart. You got to be strategic with everything you do inside, your particular office or the seat that you represent. Because not only you have to represent your own citizens, your own residents from your district, but you have to also represent your party. If you run as a Democrat, you have to make sure that you line up within the Democratic Party, agenda. Otherwise, you are a disruptive one, and you are never going to get anywhere in Congress. You're just going to be a number.
Right. Like, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, she's like, wasn't she stripped of her committees and stuff? Like, I mean, that's just what happens when you do things like that. You don't play the game. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not condoning like that you have to play the game. I'm personally very bad at playing that about playing politics, and I probably would be the type of person who would show up, tell everybody off, and that would be a one-term person, right? But you can't, if you really want to stay the long term, you kind of have to play that game.
Well, in her case, and her case is unique. She's a white supremacist.
Yeah.
You know, we know everything that she represents. She makes it very clear. So the Democratic Party is the one that pushed to strip her from committees. The Republican Party still supports her. They haven't set her down. They haven't, saying much about her stand because she lines up with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's what gives her the power. If
Yeah.
Donald Trump was not there, if he was irrelevant, then she would have been gone long time ago. They probably would have, stripped her from her seat. Period. But the fact is that Donald Trump has a lot of power within the Republican Party. But that's the way it works in Congress, and there's many other things. Our people, and I say our people, the squad, they have to be careful how they present things, or they can be viewed as an extremist.
Right.
We have right now a congresswoman that is constantly being attacked,
Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar. She's constantly being attacked, and sometimes even by her own party,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
right? So that's the real world. So progressives, we need to think. We need to think smart. We need to play strategic politics. We have to be cold blooded when it comes to politics, not emotional. If you are emotional in politics, you will never make it, and you will be very, very discouraged very quickly because you're gonna see some of the stuff being done out there that will blow your mind, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is it. Forget it. I give them $20, and look what they're doing." You know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, and it's a good point. And I think also we have to remember that we have we don't always agree on things on as progressives or people on the left, and that we cannot let our infighting get in the way of our major goals in this country and like the major wants that we have. And I think that they're pretty obvious, right? Like we want healthcare, we want free education, we want housing, we want affordable living. We want, to be able to afford to eat, to put food on the table. We don't want to have to worry about being in debt when we don't have any other option but to go into debt. Like these are like really basic things that we're asking for. And then but then somehow people start to lose sight of this, and now they're fighting over these minor issues that, yes, on the one hand they are very important, but on the other they're like, okay, if we don't deal with these our top ones though, we're never going to get to those issues. And people seem to miss that, and then they want to they want to throw you out and cancel you because you didn't quite exactly hit, like every single category of what they think you should be supporting. And I think that is a real major problem. And it seems to me that there's something about people, about the way that we think, the way our brains are wired on the left, that is different than the way people's brains are wired on the right, because there's actually been some studies about this, or at least like one study that I saw. So I'm going to say some studies, but I assume that there's been more than one. I know of one study where it was like a psychology type test, and they found that people who were conservative had a much more narrow worldview than people who were, considered more liberal or left wing or something. So their brains were a little bit more, I would say, like rigid in a way.
Close minded.
Yeah, a little more closed minded. And it actually, if I remember the study, it was like they had to draw a circle and it told them something. So, but anyway, like my point is that I think that there's something different about the way people on the left think and the way people on the right think. Whereas, like, you see it even with the Republican Party, like they fall in line, they do what they're told, and they stick together and they get their main agenda out of the way, right? They don't all agree. Like, Rand Paul doesn't necessarily agree with everything that the Republican Party does, but he does step and fall in line when he needs to. And but when it comes to the Democratic Party, like they're all over the place. And I think the same on the left. Like since I was, my late teens and started doing, organizing and activism, I was on these mailing lists. I saw that there was all this infighting and people tearing each other apart because their ideology wasn't quite right somehow. And it seems to me that this type of infighting goes way back on the left, even, even as far as like something like what happened in the Mexican Revolution, where and I was just watching a documentary on this, so I'm quoting really what the documentary said here. So if anybody has a different perspective, let me know. But basically, it was like you had two types of groups. You had a group of people in the Mexican Revolution who were from the farms, the countryside, and you had the city folk who were part of the revolution. And the city people were very much opposed to religion, and when the farm workers came into the cities, and this was at a point where the revolution was going very well, they were carrying signs of like the Virgin of Guadalupe and stuff, and the city activists who were part of the revolution, they were actually, they were anarchists, and they were like completely opposed. They thought that these people were just, like reformists who were really aligned with capitalism, and because they supported this power structure of religion, and they didn't understand that what the meaning of the Virgin of Guadalupe meant to these peasants from the countryside. Like, it had a very deep meaning that to them was actually revolutionary, I think. So there was infighting as a result, and the documentary concluded that that was part of the reasons why the revolution failed, because they could not unite the two groups. And I think that's a really important lesson for us, because I see this all the time. I see the infighting on the left, and I think that we have to stop the infighting and leave that till after the revolution, and then fight all you want. But not until the point that we get our basic needs met in terms of healthcare, education, being debt free, not being able to put food on the table, and having a living wage that isn't inflated away. and having security for not just yourself but for your future generation, your descendants. Until we get those things, we need to stop fighting over these small petty issues and these other more international issues, because we're not going to win here. And if we cannot help ourselves, we cannot help anybody else.
That is the real truth right there. And unfortunately, this is uh, things that affects the progressive movement is the infighting. And we want to go in there and change Congress. We want to change the Democratic Party, or want to even create a new party, whatever your thing is. But the infighting kills you each and every time.
Mm-hmm.
There's infighting from those people that are trying to create a new party.
Mm-hmm.
They have all kinds of problems. It's not easy to make change. And I think like the less we start labeling ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and start showing action, let's run a test for a minute. You know, don't tell nobody that you are whatever you are politically. You're
Right.
Democrat, progressive, whatever you are.
Marxist, Leninist,
Don't
Maoist, Trotskyist.
just work. Just do your work. A lot of people, you know, when I was doing foreclosure work, I had a lot of people that were supporting our work who were Republicans. We never once mentioned politics. We're
Mm-hmm.
not mentioning, Democratic Party, this or that. We didn't do that. We stuck to the issue, and that was
Exactly.
to stay their homes.
Exactly.
Later on, we find out that these people that were coming and supporting us and doing a lot of the heavy work were actually Republicans.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that that's such an important point, because I think it really proves that we're so wrapped up in these labels and in the caricatures of each other as being on one side or being on the other, and we overlook the commonalities, and we are so focused on the differences that we're stopping ourselves from doing so much. There's so much we could do if we could just focus on the commonalities. And that, Carlos, is such a great point. Like, here you would never think, oh, like, there were these anarchists from Occupy who were occupying these homes at the same time that you had Republicans who were helping fund and support this movement, because they also understood that losing their home affects them too. So here's a moment in which, for better or worse, you actually are united with the people that you think that you hate. So.
Right. And really what attract people like that is because we didn't talk politics. We stuck to the issues.
Mm-hmm.
We fought the wrong
Mm-hmm.
that was being done against everyone.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Against everyone.
Right.
There's a lot of issues that should not be political, but they have been politicized. There's political parties that have taken advantage of those issues and have made it about politics because we have allowed them to do that. One of those issues is the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic should have never been politicized. That was a world health crisis that put the United States at high risk. Donald Trump should have brought in everybody, and he pretty much should have said, "We have a national crisis. It's going to take all of us." You know what I mean? To fight against this. You know what I mean? And we are going to put the people, at the front center of this. It's not about my party. It's not about this. They politicize it. But I'm not going to just blame him on politicizing issues.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats have done the same thing
Mm-hmm.
over the years. So both parties are guilty of politicizing issues.
Yeah.
Housing should not be a political thing. It should be a national issue
Mm-hmm.
because it affects everyone. Healthcare is the other one. education. These are national issues that affects everyone. Both parties should be working on this, and this is what the people should be demanding: that both parties go to the table and freaking fix this thing. They have a mandate. 70% of the people want healthcare for the people. It should not be an option for a party to accept it or reject it. It's like you need to do this. Period. But we have allowed these people in Washington to politicize it and to create talking points that will make it healthcare is, they're gonna take away everything from you. You're not gonna have that. You're gonna have long life. You're gonna have another Venezuela here. Cut the crap out. You know. But that's the realities. Margaret, look, the same things that we are fighting against, for the people in Washington, we see that within our own movements. We fighting each other. You know, we fight. I see progressives, fighting to see who's going to be the leader or this or that. Is like, or my group is better than yours. All that kind of stuff. It's like, oh my goodness gracious, help us.
Yeah.
But we have seen a lot of good coming out, and I think that yeah, we are going to see great things happening this coming year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, I think we're a little, we're you know, commiserating a little bit over the things that are holding us back. But at the same time, I mean, at the same time, we are doing good things, and the progressive movement continues to do good things, and not just by electing people to Congress, but also in the background, whether they're lobbying or they're organizing at the grassroots level or through mutual aid. Like, there's still a lot of good things happening. Just wish that we could unite a little bit better so that we could make these good things happen a little bit faster and a little bit more effectively. But Carlos, I mean, it would be great to let's highlight some of the good things that we expect to happen coming up.
Right. Well, look at. I think this is where our strength is. This is where the progressive strength is. Number one is in the people. Right. We are in touch with the people. We are in every community. We get involved in all kinds of stuff on the ground. That's where our strength is. We need to triple down on that. We need to continue to do the things that actually affects change at the bottom, all the way to the bottom. Doing all the housing work, doing the work in behalf of the unhoused community, fighting all those climate or those excuse me, uh, fighting uh, all those issues that are environmentally affecting our communities, whether it's industries in a community that are, creating toxic pollution. You know, we fight all these things. People notice and they join our ranks. You know, we lined up into supporting community leaders that are doing a good work, and we get behind them and we help them find resources and we empower them. You know, so those are some of the things, some of the steps that we need to continue to take. Those are effective steps. You know, then we have to consider about supporting those people that are running for office locally. Get them in there, help them, but don't just elect them. Continue to support them so that they can be successful. I think that if we do those things, we are going to be unstoppable. When you look at the other side, the far right, and those grassroots groups that they have created, what are they doing? They are not out there feeding the hungry. They are not there, fighting for social justice. They are out there promoting their guns, pushing for agendas that are hateful, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing the opposite. We need to triple down in what we're doing. People love to see this kind of stuff. When I see people coming to the food banks, we never ask them what is your political stand. We don't care. And some of the people that come to our food banks, I know some of them are Republicans because I do talk to them and conversation. I see how they start talking about politics, and I know where they stand. But guess what? They keep coming and they love us, and they say thank you, and they say keep doing this, and let me know if you need any help, whatever I can do to contribute. That's I think our that is a winning agenda for the progressives. Continue to do the work at the grassroots level, triple down on what you are doing. Never mind the people up there. Change the world at the bottom, and the top will fall. Like they say, hit them at the knees, and they will fall.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that is the winning strategy. Because you can change things. It's much easier too to change things at the local level. So it's a great place to start. And so much power actually exists at the local level than at the federal level. So you might as well start where it's easiest in your community and where you can organize a lot faster. You don't need a lot of people to start. So
Right?
you got to do it.
Exactly. So that's it for us today. We wanted to come in and talk a little bit on the state of our politics. When we running into the end of the year, a lot of people out there are having a hard time. A lot of people are worried that their their student loans are going to resume come January. So I'm hearing that a lot from people that are worried because they don't have the money. We see the problems that are happening with labor. People don't want to work when they are not being respected and taken care of. Even if you give them $18 an hour, may not be enough at all. Remember, people were working 2 and 3 jobs. They realized that was insane. Now those same employers are saying, "Well, we give you $18 an hour." That was not enough. That was still not enough
Yeah.
because you still don't have benefits. You don't have this. The cost of living has skyrocketed. Even if you take public transportation, even public transportation has become unaffordable for a lot of people. They
Jeez.
struggle to get, a pass, a monthly pass, maybe about $40, $50. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. So if you're thinking about putting food on the table, paying for gas, paying utilities, buying some used clothes, go to a food bank, standing there for hours, get a couple of bags of food, and have to raise your children. Things go wrong, your car breaks down, or someone gets sick, you don't have this. You got to think about all those things. How in the world are people making it? How are they making it? And how can we tell them we are doing everything for you, American people? You know what I mean? We are the party that supports you. Or we don't need to tax the rich. My gosh, they being affected. It is immoral to raise their taxes when they do so much for everyone. Sure, all those are talking points that we need to
Yeah.
dismiss because are just talking points. You know, give us something. President Joe Biden has the power to come tomorrow and announce, I'm wiping out student debt. Issue an executive order. Am I wrong?
As far as I know, you're not.
What we understand, he has the power to do that. And this is my personal thought on this. They've been talking about, wiping out X amount of dollars, several $1,000s, make it sound pretty, right? Oh, we're gonna wipe away $50,000 from everybody. Oh, that sounds like, oh my God, that's so generous. But you still have 100,000, which in time, with all the penalties and everything, and all the 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 fees, you're back in square one. They need to just to wipe the damn thing off. Period. Get over it. Win a lot of people to your side, right? Get rid of the problem, and you have one less problem to deal with. Now you could tackle something else, and you'll be a champion for so many people out there. For so many people, you take them to a different level, a different economic status in life. You infuse so much into the economy just by doing that. It's not that like it's going to break the country. The country's in a mess already. Give something back to the people. Anyways, Margaret, a pleasure being with you again today, this beautiful Sunday. The sun is starting to break right now. It's starting to, I see some of the rays of the sun must be because, ta-da, which is announced, right?
Yeah, it's great. And I think actually over this hour it's gone gloomier over here. So I don't know what that says about being out in Georgia right now compared to California. But the mood here is getting a little gloomy. It's very, very overcast. I need more lights in my apartment. Well, thank you, Carlos. That was great and a wonderful discussion. And thank you to all of our viewers for staying on with us for the hour. We will be back next week on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We broadcast live on Facebook and also on YouTube. Please follow us on YouTube at Inside Out News. The link is right below. It's really important that you follow us there because our main page, the Bernie Sanders Brigade page, is still in review. So our page, we cannot post anything on there. You guys can't access it, so it's been a real problem for us. So please follow us on YouTube because we always have our videos there every week, and it's a much more solid way for us to maintain the connection with you, our viewers. So thank you, and want to wish everybody who is celebrating Hanukkah a happy Hanukkah, Hag Sameach, and make lots of donuts and chocolate coins, and have a lot of fun. I think this is the last night. So thank you, and we'll see you again next week. Carlos, anything else?
No, we're sending our love and appreciation to all the volunteers out there. You who day after day, week after week, month after month, event after event, show up and volunteer. You are the one, you are the center of the wheel. You are the wheel in the wheel. You are the one that make things happen for all of our organizations, all the events that are planned out. Without volunteers, we cannot get the stuff done. So I give you, the volunteers, all the credit, 100% the credit to you because of the labor of love that you give back to the people, to the community, to the neighborhood, to whatever you get involved with. Keep volunteering, get involved. It's going to be okay.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you again to all our viewers. We'll see you next week, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You've been watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm your co-host, Margot Paez, and this is your other co-host, the amazing grassroots organizer, Carlos Marroquin. We'll see you guys next week. Take care, get vaccinated, and wear a mask. We have a new variant, so keep an eye out for that one. Take care, everybody, and have a really great week.